Howdy everyone. Today I'm going to be making a full-length YouTube video showing off my painting a charging bull, so you'll get to see what paints I use and how I do my painting. This is my first tiptoe into a full-length video. I don't actually own a computer, so it's just going to be using my phone camera and the YouTube app to stitch together clips. Don't expect anything amazing, but if you've been wanting to see how I paint my guys, this will be a special treat. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. First off, we'll take a look at the model. This is the Ultramarine, I believe, from the Space Marines Adventures Tyranid Attack board game. I do my painting in subassembly most of the time. Usually it's the torso and legs, both arms, backpack, and helmet. Sometimes other characters I might have other separate pieces. The legs might be separated, but this is just how I enjoy painting, getting into some of the crevices and the back of the guns and whatnot, and then I'll glue it all together whenever it's all already done. So we got the torso here. The only changes I've made to the model would be the arm. Originally his left arm was a reloading magazine. I got a power fist here. That'll be fun. Haven't painted up a power fist yet. And I got a shoulder for that power head. It's going to be a Deathwatch shoulder. Oh, like I said, we're going to have to learn how this works together. There we go. So we got a Deathwatch shoulder. Never done one of those, although I do have a pack of them to give out randomly to some lieutenants and maybe captains and whatnot. And this is one of those hero style models I talk about every once in a while. So it does have the sculpted base, just standing on a battlefield like the other two I've painted so far. For starters, I prime in Army Painter Black Spray Primer. And then I do my initial base coat with Wa Flesh Green. I take a kind of rounded dry brush like that. Dip it in. I don't do any thinning to this. Maybe I should. I don't know. I think they turn out perfectly fine. Just rub it around in there to get off some excess paint. And then I'll just coat it just like that. I did a little bit already, but I threw that footage away because I did too much stuttering. I will do this to the torso, the feet, the arms, the backpack, not the helmet because he's a lieutenant. Pretty much anything that's armor, again, except the helmet. So I'll be back once that step is done. And we're back with everything but the weapons, helmet, shoulder pads, and the base itself painted. Next step is going to be a dry brush of Moot Green. Going to be using the same brush. I have given it time to dry. Probably put a little bit too much paint on there, but we're going to dry it off. This one's actually going to be a normal kind of dry brush, so we're going to get most of this paint off. There we go. Test it on my thumb. Looks pretty good. And now we do a regular dry brush. At least I think this is regular. I'm no professional, but I think this is typically how it's done. And then I'm going to go through and do this to all of the areas I painted green. This is how it's already starting to look, and we'll be right back. And here we have the Moot dry brush. This gives a lot of highlight definition. This is usually where I stop with the battle line troops, my intercessors, the infiltrators that you may or may not have seen in the shorts. But for the leaders, sergeants, HQ units, I add a little bit of a white dry brush. It's a much more subtle touch. I am currently using Corax White, although I do plan on switching as soon as I run out of this to find hopefully one that's a little bit less chalky. I'm not a big fan of the white. So we get the edges kind of like a highlight. Let me just get a little bit of it to show you what I mean, and then I'll finish it all off on camera. There we go. So it's just a much lighter aspect than the moot green, which compared to the green kind of takes away from that it's white just because of the bright green it's on top of. So let me finish this up and then I'll show you. And here we have the finished product of the highlights. That will, not the highlights, the dry brushes. That'll be the last dry brush on this model. I did do this to all of the green parts. Next up is going to be the contrast, kind of like a slap chop method. I use Carandra's green. It's a little bit difficult to say. Let me go ahead and pop this open. I still have some white on this brush. I do go ahead and just use the same brush. It seems like I use it for everything, but bear with me. I use this probably a lot. Too much paint I get on this brush for this, but I need to get off some of that white because I didn't clean it before. But nothing's perfect. Let me get a little bit of a cleaner. I keep a little bottle of isopropyl alcohol on me, just to clean mostly the greens and the reds. They really like to stick to the Brussels sprouts. I don't like to get everything out right now. I'll clean it more diligently later. I'm just mainly trying to get all that white out so it doesn't... Oh no, I spilled my paint. I'll clean that up in a minute. Let me finish doing this. If I can get any paint left in the jar. God, oop, knocked it over again. I was not prepared for all this, obviously. Alright, that looks good. Alright, and then we're going to cover pretty much the whole model with this. Okay, a little bit thick. There we go. I usually do the bottom half first, let it dry, and then do the top half. That way I don't leave smudge marks all over the bottom when I'm painting. I guess I could put this onto something to paint it, but I don't find it like it makes that big of a deal. I gotta paint the other pieces in between waiting for it to dry anyway, so I'm not too worried. Let's pick up some of that paint. Oh, speaking of which, I gotta use up all the paint that I just spilled on the table before I clean it up. There we go. Waste not, want not. And then you can see the base green that I typically have on my models beginning to form. I'm going to go over this a little bit more just to smooth it out, get rid of some of that, what'd you call that, striations, and do the rest of the green. And then I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. And we have to let these guys dry off before I do the next step. But just to show that not everything on the internet is perfect, or as perfect as it seems, I did spill my bottle of Carandra's green, I can never remember the name, about 3 times as I was moving my hands around the camera. Got it on my hands, my workstation, in multiple areas. Heck, I got it on my clothes. Happens to everyone. I'm sure we've all seen the videos online of people spilling their Knoll oil. But I'm gonna be back whenever that's finished drying and I finish cleaning up this giant mess I've made. Alright, and I am back with slightly cleaner hands and a different filming angle. We'll see if this is more comfortable and leads to less messes. Alright, all my green pieces are dried up. Now we're going to apply a wash, get some, what do the professionals say, give it definition? I don't know, it's supposed to make it look better. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But, whatever, I have time to waste. I'm in no rush. Oh, I'm using Beltan Green as my shade, or wash. I've heard that Space Marines don't really take washes well because it's, what's the word, flat, round pieces. Oh, there's a little bit of a thumbprint there, but we'll survive. I think you can kind of see the color gradient. I don't have the best camera, so looking through the camera, you can't really, but I promise in person there is a very, very, very slight color gradient between the edges, which are a little bit lighter, and everything else that is not. Alright, let's apply this Beltane green real quick. Just liberally all over the model. I probably won't even get a cutaway because this is going to take like a minute or two tops. Here we go. I realize there's a lot of dead air. I apologize for that. I'm new to this. I'm not entirely sure what to talk about. I feel like if I just make up random stuff, it's just going to be disingenuous anyway. Although maybe talking about how I don't want to make up random stuff is making up random stuff. Get the backpack. This is almost entirely flat panel. I'm not sure if the shading even has any effect on that. Grab a little bit more. This can be covered up by a shoulder pad, so I'm not sure how important it is. But whatever. 2 more pieces. Then we'll show it off. This one has like buttons and stuff, so maybe that'll make a difference. If you think it does or doesn't, let me know. Do I need to engage farm? There we go. This is all just a hobby, since I don't live close enough to really play the game. And close enough to a game store anywhere to really play on any kind of regular basis. Which is the whole reason I decided to get into Space Marines. I thought it would be fun to make my own chapter, give me something to do after work, and still be able to engage in the hobby. And my actual normal army, which is Custodes, I genuinely don't really enjoy painting it. Maybe it's just because it's so much metallic gold. Blah. Here we go. Take a look, see real quick. In the camera, it just looks like the exact same green, just shinier. But in person, it still doesn't look amazingly different. It is what it is. There's one more step, and then we'll be finished with the bodily green, and we can get on to the more interesting bits. Is this the interesting bit? I don't know. I'll see you then. And now it is time for the final step of the base green coloring, and that is to add some highlights with Moot Green again. Now, highlights are something I've gone back and forth on for the entire time I've been on this, which I think this is model 23 or 22. I'd have to check. But anyway, I didn't do them at first, and then I painted them on, and then I tried to dry brush them on, and honestly, I can't really decide what I like the most, but this is what we're going with at the current time. I put it on this flat brush. You can see it there. And pretty much just kind of try to get the side and pull away from the model, just to get like a little bit on the edge. I'm not the best at it. Mistakes happen. There's gunked up areas of a lime green in places it probably shouldn't be, but I think the effect comes across how I want it. Let's see if we can see a difference on the camera. A little bit. If I move it around, you see the lighting. I wonder if this shows up better in the shorts I make. There's a different lighting in a different area that I do the shorts on. But I'm going to finish this, and then we can get on with some more fun details than just the green armor. Alright, now that we are done with the base green on all the armor, we can get to a little bit of detail work. Let's go ahead and start with the backpack. It's usually pretty quick. I'm going to get the vent pieces, the top and the bottom, with Iron Warrior, which is my kind of dirty metallic of choice. And there we have it. Now on most of my models, the line troops, that's where I'd call it. That would be pretty much the end of it. This is a lieutenant, so we're going to add a little bit of paint, probably to this centerpiece here, and maybe I'll add some paint to this grill. I might do both red, maybe the grill metallic and the backplate red. You'll see in just a moment. And as you can see, I did decide to go with the metallic grill and the red plate. And that is the end of the backpack, pretty much. I just realized I didn't say what red I was using. My base red of choice is Mephiston. Let's move on to the head, since we're already messing with some red. Now I'm gonna solve this off camera because it's a lot of time consuming little work, like the eyes and the stripe. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you know what colors I use, and then I'll just show a brief interlude of the progress. So I think in order, I'm gonna paint the head red. Then I will do the eyes white, and then the eyes red on top of the white with ball red to give it like a brighter look. Then I'll do the green stripe on the head, which I'm going to do with Wa flesh, and then again with Karandras green like the rest of my armor. This little skull on here I'll be painting black, and these little pipes on the sides of his helmet near his mouth are going to be the same Iron Warrior's metal. The red head, the white eyes, which got a little messy, but that'll be cleaned up later. And here's the brush I was using. Hard to see. It's a fairly fine brush, although it could be better. I'm thinking of switching to toothpicks. A subscriber mentioned that during a little test live stream. And here are the green eyes, not red. I did with Moot Green. Since it's a red helmet, red eyes wouldn't really work too well, in my opinion. Here is the green stripe, which I did decide to keep the darker Wa green. I just think that might look a little bit better. I also went ahead and cleaned up the white and green lines around the eyes with the red. Black skull, metallic face tubes, and that's the head. Next up, we'll be working on the shoulder plates, probably starting with this Deathwatch shoulder plate. I've never done one, but it looks pretty fun. Now I need to be able to hold it while I paint, so I'm going to grab some sticky tack that I keep beside me, and a brush that I'm not going to be using on this model. Or not on the model, but on the shoulder pad. Put some sticky tack in there, like that. And then okay, that was a little bit too much. Let me take some of that off. There we go. Then I'm going to take my paintbrush and kind of force it in there. And there we go. Now, I haven't done this kind of shoulder pad before, but I'm gonna guess that using the Iron Warriors and kind of like a dry brush might be the best way to get everything on there, to get the raised kind of insignias they have in set while leaving the black background. I guess we're gonna find out. Alright, and then here we have it covered in the metal. Can't really see too much of a difference, I think. Here, I have some black. There's a little bit of a difference on camera. A little bit more of a difference in person. Next, I think I'm going to color that skull in the middle with some gold. Perhaps a more silvery metallic would have been better, but I don't have one here. So this is what it's going to get. Maybe next time if I have a silver metallic, I'll try that instead, and we'll see which one's better. And I think the addition of the gold skull and crossbones really makes it pop. I like this. We're going to move on to the next shoulder pad. Here we go. First step is going to be the trim. I like to do the trim before I do the red. This is 7th Company, which for the Charging Bulls is yellow trim. You can start with pink or white. For helmets, I use pink for the trim. I really don't think it's all too important or different, but I usually just have the white beside me. I don't usually have the pink nearby, so I have to go dig that out. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the white all the way around the trim, and then I'm going to do the yellow all the way around the trim. Here is the white. It's rather messy. It's not going to matter much. The red's going to cover it up just fine. But I got to make sure I get that full coverage for the yellow, because yellow is not going to show up too well over the black. Here is the yellow, which again is messy. We're going to clean that up with the red in the next step. And the yellow I use is Everland Sunset. And here is the shoulder pad now that we have some red on it. There is one last step, and that is to give it a little bit of a second coat of ball red. I find that this brightens up the shoulder pad, which I just prefer the contrast. I'm not sure if I'm using the word contrast right, but I like it more compared to the darker reds of the helmet and any other details I put on there. And here we have the almost finished project. I still have to put the green horns on the shoulder pad to signify the chapter, but that's usually one of the last things I do. It's kind of shiny right now because it's still wet, but this is the brighter red that I like. Let's see, next up is, we already did the shoulder pad, right? Oh, yeah. I forgot how good this looked. It's been like 4 days since I've done any painting, so I gotta remember what all I did. Let's see. Oh, I guess we'll get the details on the body. Let's see what we need to do. We need to put red onto the Aquila. Get some kind of gunmetal, I think, for this scope. And whatever this is right here. Gotta paint these Oaths of Moment right there. Color these pouches brown. And then do something with this pistol holster. Alright, let's start with the gunmetal. We're going to put some Iron Warrior on this scope and on this little doodad here on his hip. Alright, the little scope and the doodad are all Iron Warriored up. Next, I'm going to do these two pouches on the back and the pistol holster. I'm going to do those in a light brown, and my light brown of choice is XV88. I'm also going to go ahead and get the handle of that pistol, probably just black with, have I shown it? The Black Legion contrast. Alright, we have the brown pouches, brown pistol holster with a black handle. All that's left are the Aquila and those Oaths of Moment. So let's go ahead and do the fabric part of the Oath of Moment, and then we'll do the stamp. For the fabric, I use Wraithbone as my off-white. And now we actually do the wax seal with Blood Angel's red contrast. With the red done, it's still wet, but it'll look better once it dries. We have to add the little writing. We're going to do that with our black contrast again. Dip my brush in it. Rub off some excess. And then I try to get the further bristles, so the tip, or really the side, to just glide across. It's in a tight spot. I'm going to try my best here. There we go. That back one kind of got messed up, but it was harder to reach. But the front looks pretty good. Alright, now I just got to do the equivalent, and the chest will be, or not just the chest, the body will be done. Alright, here is the mostly finished torso. We got to do some shading later. I went back and forth a lot on whether or not to do the Aquila red or gold, or to leave it green. Ultimately, I decided there wasn't enough red on the model. The secondary color wasn't really there. Just the 2 shoulder pads for most models. Heck, this model is only going to be 1 shoulder pad. Because... oh, I almost lost that. There we go. Because of the Deathwatch shoulder pad. And speaking of adding some splashes of color, I think these little detail bits are very necessary. It really just breaks up all that green on the model. If your color scheme is diachromatic, you do the split down the middle, or it does that quartered pattern, I think you could get away without them because of the mix of color. But if you go extremely into one color, like this one, or like most Canon chapters, I think the breakup of all the little extra decorative bits is almost mandatory to not make a whole army or just a squad a kind of color blob eyesore. So with this done, I would normally go into the weapons. We're going to have this Power Fist to paint, and this bolt rifle. But because this is a hero style model, I have to do a base. I think I'm probably going to put an undercoat of my light brown, or maybe even the beige, followed by, no, it'll be the light brown. We'll do the light brown, the XV88, followed by a wash, a dark wash of, where is it? I have a brown wash somewhere. Bear with me, I apologize. Here we go. Agrax Earthshade is my kind of dirty brown wash of choice. And then I'll go through, I'll put some gray on the stone. The only gray I actually have is this Dawnstone Dry, which I have to scoop out and then get wet. That way I can actually paint with it, put that on the rocks. We'll grab the metallics to color some of these bolt shells. Correct me if I'm wrong, old lore masters, but most bolt guns don't actually expel shells, right? The bolter round is like a single rocketed projectile. It doesn't shoot out of its casing, as far as I'm aware. So we're going to do all that in steps, and then we can finally move on to the weapons, which is one of my favorite parts. The base, I decided to just go ahead and do completely off screen, since it's something that isn't going to be consistent on all of my models, at least right now. I will eventually get to going back and basing the models, probably once I have around 2,000 points of models. But I mostly did how I said I was going to do it. I did light brown for the base, then I did my Agrax Earthshade. I put some copper for the bullets. Let me find it real quick. Screaming Bell. So I guess it's more of a brass, not a copper. I then put some Nuln Oil on the metallics to darken it up a bit so they'd be dirty. I did the gray Dawnstone, I think it was called, for the rocks, and that's it. This is the base. All that's left are the weapons. Now I have a fun little system for my weapons. Give me just a moment. Because I want my weapons to be a little bit unique in coloration amongst all my models, I do a random number generator system to determine what color combination I use. Normally I would roll a d10, but over the holiday weekend I brought my dice to my girlfriend's house and then forgot them. So I had to use a random number generator on Google, so I can't actually show it being done, so I had to do it off screen. But I'll go ahead and show out the whole process. So depending on what kind of unit it is, there's battle line, which would be the intercessors, assault intercessors, heavy intercessors, and cursors, infiltrators, and infernus. They have much lower chances of having more colors, much higher chances of having less colors. Then there's any other type of infantry. Every bump up will give a higher chance of more colors. Then there's vehicle weapons, and then there's HQ weapons. And for sergeants, I give it a bump up. So a battle line sergeant would be the same as an infantry, and something like an aggressor sergeant would be rolling on the vehicle section. And then for characters, add a little, do I want to add a color of my choice, accent color? And in this case, I got a 3 color, I believe it was a 4 when I rolled HQ. Here's the 2 color bar graph, line graph, whatever kind of graph. On the 3 color, I got a 10, which corresponds to green. So we follow that. There's the green. I then rolled a 1, so green and red. And then I rolled an 8, which would correspond to metal. So green, red, and metal. And then I rolled a yes on the accents. Set that right there. So my colors are going to be green, red, and metal. And then I'll do some kind of accent color. I'll figure out where I want to do that. So for the rifle, we'll probably... My favorite way to do red is to do the casing on the gun. So we're probably just going to do that again. Green, I'll probably do the underbarrel. The metal, I usually do this back part of the gun and over here near the magazine. And then of course I always put the brass on the gun barrel. And we'll figure out what the accent color will be. I'm thinking maybe gold. And I can make this little skull on the Power Fist gold as the accent color. I'm not sure I'm going to implement that here. Oops. Maybe this little bit of metal in between the casings. Just color that a little gold, just as a little pop. And then of course I'm going to color the strap brown. And I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do with this. I've never done a Power Fist. We'll find out. I went ahead and did the whole weapon off screen, since this is also a part that it's not going to be every model, so showing a step-by-step wouldn't really give much information since they're all different. But I will go over what I did. I put the Mephiston Red on the top casing of the weapon. I did the Wa Flesh on the bottom here, and then I did a layer of Moot Green to brighten it up because it was kind of dark. I didn't really like it. I did the Iron Warriors on these little metal back bits. I did a little bit of gold right here in the center. I put some of the Wraith Bone on this little parchment looking piece. I might need to touch up the top some now that I'm looking at it. Did my Screaming Bell on the tip and the XP88 on the strap. I have no clue what I'm going to write here. Maybe it's too small for me to actually write anything. Maybe I'll think about it. So I've been putting some thought into the Power Fist. I never painted a Power Fist, and I've also never painted checkerboard. So that seems like something that could be fun. I think we'll do a checkerboard pattern with 8 columns. I don't know how many rows it's going to be. I think it's going to be from this edge here to this knuckle for 1 column. Knuckle to knuckle, knuckle to knuckle, knuckle to knuckle is 4. Knuckle to about here, the edge of where this like side thumb guard goes, and then that edge to this edge here would be 6 columns. The fingers are either going to be the same Carandrass. I can never remember the name of the green I use for some reason. Carandrass. Either the fingers will be the same Carandrass green as the rest of the armor, or it'll be the Mephisto red. The back here, this part's going to be the same color as the fingers. This little doohickey will be the metallic. Maybe I'll put some kind of glowing green or red or some color right there in the center. These little palm guards will be metallic, and then this will be like black Under Armour bits. Alright, give me some time. I gotta figure out how to do this because I've never done a checkerboard and figure it out. It did not wind up as clean as I would have hoped. Maybe this paint's just too thick. I could have thinned it down some more. But, you know, I just said, hey, let's do it. Put paint to model, and I'm happy I did. I at least tried it. I am happy with the outcome, and next time, maybe it'll be better. Here is the finished product. And now that all the pieces are done, we can get to putting this model together. That's exciting. So, feet, weapon, shoulder pad, excuse me, body, backpack, and head. I'm going to have to do some snipping and gluing, so I'm going to go ahead and put this together, and then we'll take a look at it. And here we have the glued model. There are, I think, exactly 3 steps left. That would be to put on some shading. I'm going to do Reikland Flesh Shade along most of the model. On the weapon, pouches, all those accessories. The backpack. Honestly, I think everything. I'll probably use Reikland Flesh Shade on everything but the green butts. And I don't know if I'm going to do it on the metallic over here for the shoulder. I might do Nuln Oil right there. After that, I have to do the horns, so we're going to have to make the recipe. And then I got to apply the overcoat. This has been a very fun model, and now we're getting into the final steps. Let that sit there if you want to take a look at it. Here he is after a wash with the Reikland Flesh Shade on most of the non-green parts, not the shoulder pad though. Also attempted to do some lines here for tally marks. It adds up to 7, which is the company, obviously. But also he's part of Death Watch, so maybe he kept track of the different species of Xenos he slayed with his rifle while he was in the Death Watch. Seemed cool to me. Alright, next is and last. No, there's actually one more step after that now that I think about it. We have to do the horns. Now I mix this separately for each squad and for each HQ. Give me just a moment. I'm looking for the paint. Alright, so like I said, I mix this separately every time. First, I start with some of the Karanja green. Not a specific amount. I just try to drip it. A little bit too much there. It'll be right. Then I use a little paint stir to grab some wall flesh. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe that was too much. And we just mix this up. I find that the wall flesh both darkens the Karanja screen and also makes it a little bit thicker so that it can actually cover up the red a little bit and not drip. And that's about how I like it. Clean this stir off. Grab me a fine paintbrush. And then I also do this uniquely every time. Because I am not a good painter, and I cannot do this consistently, there is a lore reason as to why all of them would have various shades and why the horns will look different. That's a little bit too thick on the tip. There we go. So as a neophyte, at the end of their scout period, when they are determined to be ready to earn their armor, they must face an orc armed in one-on-one combat, unarmored, of course. They would have a chain sword, while the orc would have some kind of choppa or club. And then if they are victorious, they are first given their shoulder pad, with which they, using the blood of the orc they just slayed, will draw the horns themselves onto the shoulder pad. And then later that design and coloration will be etched into it. And I had to come up with that just so I could justify why the horns are inconsistent and bad. I do my best to try to get at least both sides near symmetry, but the second set is always worse. And the second horn is always worse. Yeah, it's not terrible. There we go. Now there is actually one more step that I almost forgot, and that is decals. I keep a little decal sheet. Now, being a member of the leadership of 7th Company, we're going to use one of these white 7s here for his shin guard. I think I'll put something on this knee pad. Maybe something on the backpack as well. Have not decided exactly what. The model is now complete. I had to spray the under... I'm going to have to put that back on. Give me a moment. Alright, I'm back. So I had to put the undercoat on because I usually do that before I apply decals, so I forgot to mention that. I use a matte spray undercoating. So it is a little, I guess you could call it chalky, but I prefer the dulled down look. And then I applied this iron halo to the bottom. Is it called the iron halo? I think so. There's his company marking on his shin guard, where normal models get their squad. There is a little Aquila, there we go, on the bottom of his glove, or power fist, to add a little bit of more different coloring, because I realized looking at it from the front, you just see so much red, because all the checkerboard is on the back. And then there's this little campaign badge on his back, just to have something on the back. And there we go. I gotta give his name. I'm gonna mark what model he is on the bottom. But there he is. I hope you have enjoyed watching me paint this guy. We didn't really see much actual painting. You got to hear the process. It was pretty much the whole point of this. And it's just a little experiment on how videos are made. I don't have editing software or anything like that. I'm just on my phone. So we're gonna put all these short clips together and it'll be done. Thank you for watching. Howdy everyone. Today I'm going to be making a full-length YouTube video showing off my painting a charging bull. So you'll get to see what paints I use and how I do my painting. This is my first tiptoe into a full-length video. I don't actually own a computer, so it's just going to be using my phone camera and the YouTube app to stitch together clips. Don't expect anything amazing, but if you've been wanting to see how I paint my guys, this will be a special treat. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Howdy everyone. Today I'm going to be making a full-length YouTube video showing off my painting a charging bull. So you'll get to see what paints I use and how I do my painting. This is my first tiptoe into a full-length video. I don't actually own a computer, so it's just going to be using my phone camera and the YouTube app to stitch together clips. Don't expect anything amazing, but if you've been wanting to see how I paint my guys, this will be a special treat. So let's just